Hi guys, it's Jordan from P&B Campers. Just going to do your handover video on your Compass Avantgarde. It's a 115 model and it is on a 2007 Peugeot Boxer chassis. So under the bonnet we've got your washer fluid, power steering fluid and engine coolant. We've then got your brake fluid attached to the servo down the back there. Engine oil filling point is this one just here, and you can see there, nice and clean, no sort of milky looking stuff on there, so there's no water inside that engine. The engine oil dipstick is this yellow topped one just down here. The air filter sits inside this box just here. The engine battery on this specific style of cab sits under the floor just in front of the passenger seat in the cab. So if you want to jump start the vehicle from under the bonnet, you've got your positive terminal just inside here, and your negative terminal is this one here. So if you wanted to jump start, positive, negative. Sometimes these little earths do get a little bit corroded, so if you don't get a decent earth from there, you can pretty much use any sort of clean piece of metal you can see, but this little bit at the back here, this engine hoist, that'll work quite well. But yeah, like I said, pretty much anywhere really that you can see, even this stuff here should probably work for an earth. But that is that. Fuel filter at the back, not that you should really need to know that, but there you go. So the original chassis plate is this one just here. There may or may not be another one inside the door here. Okay, so all we've got inside the door here is your tyre pressures, and the bonnet release handle is just there, and this is inside the passenger door. And like I said, the actual engine battery itself sits underneath this little plastic cover here. So we've also got, sorry I keep going back and forwards, this is your fuel filling point, so ignition key is needed to open that one up. You can see as well, just so that you know, the tyres on here, obviously you got nice motorhome style alloy wheels, but the tyres are the alloy saving tyres, so if you were going to brush up against the curb, it won't destroy the wheel, it'll actually just rub up against the tyre first. And to be honest, I think they look quite a lot nicer than your average tyre anyway. So nice chunky tyres on there, wind deflectors on the windows, which also I think are a nice touch. Wing mirror covers or protectors as well. So it's been looked after. We haven't put any of those parts on ourselves. This is how we got the vehicle. So there you go. Right, so you've got the refillable gas flow bottles in here. So the idea with these is just basically turn them both on when you come to using the gas. Switch them both on there. You can probably just about see, but there is a little level in there. When it shows up green on that little dial there, it's basically telling you that the gas is switched on and working. Turning the bottles off, turn these two dials here, this one here and that one there, turn them anti-clockwise to turn them on. So anti-clockwise, if I show you like that, is turning it on, and clockwise around to the right turns them off. You need to turn these bottles off before you start driving. But otherwise that is about it really. To refill the bottles, you've got this little cap just here, and that is just, you know, a refillable point at most decent sized petrol stations. We'll have a point for that because a lot of vehicles run on LPG as well. If you have appliances running via the gas, you will hear these bottles making a little bit of a hissy noise, like I can at the moment. You can probably just about hear it. Probably, actually I don't know, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it on the video or not, but if you hear a very, very slight hissing noise when the actual bottles are being used, that's not anything to worry about. It's only if you can hear a noise from there when there's nothing on that you need to sort of have a little smell for any gas leaks and things. But obviously there's no gas leaks at the moment. Went through the habitation check with flying colours, so you shouldn't have anything to worry about there. Once the hab doors open, you can see you've got the manual step, sorry, not electric. So step literally just pulls out by hand and then just basically push it down flat like that. Just next door to that, we've got the wastewater drain off point. So all the way around to the right, turns that off and stops any water from draining out from it. And around to the left, opens up that drain. We've got the little sort of tag there. So Explorer Group is basically eldest, compass, all of that sort of stuff. So that is what that is, and you can see your maximum permissible weight is 3 ton. Just in case I forget as well, this little button here is basically a 12-volt isolator for absolutely everything in the vehicle. So if I turned that off, all the lights would turn off. Anything that works from the 12-volt would be switched off. The 2 vents at the back just here are both to do with your fridge. So if you wanted to get to the back of the fridge, you just literally undo these 2. So this one here and the same on that one. I've left this cover on just quickly, just so I can show you. Little trick. You don't have to carry around a flathead screwdriver to take these on and off. You can just use on these Fiat, Peugeot, Citroen keys. There's a little bit at the end of the key there which sits just perfectly in that, and you can just turn it and turn it. If I had 2 hands I could probably do it a bit easier. Once they're both flat, lift it out, pull down, and that will come out. So that's basically like a winter cover. Got one for the top, one for the bottom. If you've got the fridge lit up on gas, which I do at the moment, I can put my hand over the top right hand side of this top vent and there'll be warm air coming out of it like there is, and that proves to me that the gas flame is definitely on and working. 2 bike rack with the right bits at the top of it so that you can hold on to the top of the bike. On the off side here, we've got your toilet cassette locker at the back. You've got a separate flush system. So pull that out, you can then fill this flush system up from there. When you're actually filling it up, your level indicator is this pipe here on the right. So that is at the perfect level at the moment. Really, I mean, you can get different versions of it, but really this needs to be the pink fluid, pre-mixed pink flush fluid. To take the cassette out, lift up on your little green tab and pull the cassette towards you. Once you've got it to there, you can then take it all the way out. You've got the bench seat style toilet, so you've got the longer, bigger cassette, which is better really. To empty this out, turn this handle here and then take this cap off, and that will then allow you to drain it. Once you've got that to that position, when you're draining it out, you need to hold down the little green button there at the back as you're draining. And the only other thing is, try and keep on top of lubricating this little seal here and any other rubber seals around any of these lockers. You need to do that with, I'll just show you, some sort, it doesn't have to be this brand, but some kind of silicone lubricant. I know this one says silicone free, but any kind of silicone spray, that kind of thing. So if you do that around that edge, and also all the rubber around any of the lockers. Otherwise, that is it. Just pop that back. So it's really important to do that, because otherwise the rubber will dry up and then allow water to seep past in between the lockers. This vent just here is for your boiler. So I've got the boiler lit up on gas at the moment, and you can probably see these random kind of lines forming. And that's because the condensation comes out of this vent from this here and this here. So because I've got it lit up on gas, I can feel lots of hot air coming out, and that's why it's just going up there and up there. So that is completely normal. That's what that is. Down low we've got your freshwater drain off point, like that. Freshwater inlet point comes out just there. That's another bit that you need to keep on top of lubricating, that little rubber seal in there. You've also got a 12-volt socket just next to the freshwater inlet, which I'll show you what that's for in a minute when we get inside. Hookup point, you can see I've got the hookup plugged in at the moment. These Eldises and compasses have got these lockers here that you can basically, they've got a little divot in the locker door, which means you can completely shut the locker up with the hookup still plugged in, which is quite a nice thing to have. And your leisure battery. So nice and easy. In the vehicle itself, on the back of this locker, or very near to it, should be a little fuse board as well, which I'll show you when we get inside. in the cab, it's pretty straightforward in here, to be honest. There's not a huge amount to go through. So you can lock and unlock the cab from just here, which is actually quite helpful when you're using it as a motorhome. You've got the hazard lights there as well, a couple of USB sockets there that you can use at any time. I think they would have been retrofitted, to be honest. The original single DIN head unit just there, and your heater controls. You've got a 5-speed manual gearbox, steering wheel controls just here, which would obviously work because you've got the original factory fitted stereo. You've got electric adjusting mirrors, so you can basically just choose which mirror you want to move and move it around. Washers and wipers on the right, indicators and lights on the left. Other than that, in the cab, that is about it. So on the subject of the hookup and stuff that I was just showing you, if we have a little look, let me lift that up. Okay, so I should have been a bit better prepared really. I'm just going to lift these cushions out of the way so I can show you. Right, that's easier. Okay, so under this offside settee, we've got a couple of bits. So this is basically the back of that locker that I was just showing you, where the hookup is. So a couple of bits. The battery charger is that little silver box just there, which is making a little bit of a noise. It's completely normal. And like I said, on the back of the box there, we've got your 12-volt fuse box. So the fuse box has got a little symbol and word next to each one of those, telling you exactly what it does and what size fuse it should be. So they're all completely correct and all working as they should as we speak. But if, for example, one day you came in the vehicle and couldn't get any lights to come on, after checking the 12 volt is actually switched on and things like that, which I'll show you in a minute, you can have a little look in here and just check that the fuse is okay. Obviously let us know if you get any problems, but you know, it's so simple in here to actually find what the issue is. Then you know, you can just have a little look for yourself to save any sort of confusion. Over to the right, this pipe here is your freshwater inlet pipe, and that is about it, apart from these two dials down here are gas isolator taps. So if you wanted to isolate the gas, so the top one there is for your heater and the bottom one is for the boiler. So if you wanted to isolate the gas from either of those things, you just turn the knob there 90 degrees and that will completely isolate the gas from said appliance. So put that down. I'll put the cushions back after the video. Okay, so up here we've got your solar controller, which is telling us the battery voltages in both batteries. So if I am correct, I think that should be wired up to both batteries. So how many wires have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, so that should be wired up to both engine and leisure batteries. So that means that the solar panel, normally they would just be charging up the leisure battery. So you've got a duo controller here, which means it's charging up both engine and leisure battery at the same time, which is exactly what you want. So that's what that box there is for. Assuming you've turned on your isolator switch down there, which I showed you a minute ago, we can then come to this main control panel here. Now, I know it's only small, but these are very reliable little control panels. So on the left, we've got a main pump on and off switch. Can I just point out as well, my hands aren't actually as dirty as they look in the video. I've just sort of noticed that, but they're definitely not. Anyway, so the left-hand switch there is the pump on and off switch. So now that I've turned that on, if I come over to any of the taps, the micro switch inside the tap will allow water to come out. Okay, so because you've got a submersible water pump, submersible means it sits inside the actual water tank itself, so it sits in the water. Because you've got one of those, it means that every single one of the taps in this entire van has got a little micro switch in it, where when you lift the actual handle up, a little switch basically creates a circuit and then sends power to that pump. So essentially what that means is the pump itself doesn't work via pressure, it works via 12-volt power. So you shouldn't really have as much pressure dotted around the vehicle as you would with an inline pump, which generally means you won't get as many leaks and things in the future. So now that you've turned that pump switch on, like I said, that won't do anything at all until you physically touch the tap. The next one along that says water, when you press and hold on that, if you check out the bottom scale, it shows you your fresh water level. So I know for a fact that's not actually completely full, the tank, so please don't sort of take it as gospel. These are just a kind of a guide, a rough guide to the water level. The battery voltage, which it's showing you at the top, is going to be correct because they're much more accurate, but the fresh water level ones can be a little bit vague. So I mean, there is definitely water in the tank, but it's certainly not full. But yeah, so you know, unless it's brand new, the van, these generally are a little bit rough to the scale, but there you go. So that's your fresh water level. It's not completely full, but it gives you a pretty good idea. The last one is aux and vehicles. So we're up on aux at the moment, and that's because aux is your leisure battery. Now, if we had all these lights on in here and stuff going on like I do now, and it was running via the vehicle battery, essentially all you're doing is drawing power directly down there from your vehicle battery and eventually just draining your vehicle battery out so much that you can't start it anymore. So really important that you just use aux on there. Anytime that you want to draw any power, use auxiliary so that you don't drain out your vehicle battery. So that's how it needs to be set up, really, if you want to use the vehicle, if you want to use the water and your 12-volt power. Okay, so because I've got a hookup cable plugged into the vehicle, I can use this switch up here if I want to. So this is your 240-volt water heater switch. So if I want to heat the water up inside the boiler via the 240-volt element, turn that switch on there, and it just basically starts working. All right. If I didn't have a hookup plugged in and I wanted to use the gas to heat the water up, all I have to do is turn this outer ring and it will start heating up the water inside the boiler. All I have to do from there is set the temperature that I want, 30 through to 70, and that's it. That's lit at the moment. If it doesn't light up, you get a little red light inside there. And also, if you set the temperature to 50 degrees, it gets to 50 degrees, it will also turn itself off and come back on again when it needs to. All right, so that is that. On the topic of the boiler, just before I start rambling on about something else, in this cupboard you've got the boiler itself down here, underneath this little wooden cover. I'm just trying not to I've got this heater on full blast. I'm trying not to like burn my face whilst we're doing this. Right, so the boiler itself, the only thing you need to know is the little yellow tab down there, which is currently laying flat. If I lifted that upright or vertical, all the water from inside the boiler would drain out onto the floor. Now the reason you would drain that out is if it was winter time and you wanted to drain the boiler out so that the water inside of it didn't freeze, you need to drain the water out from that little point that I just showed you in there. All right. Right, I'm just going to turn this heater off just for a second because it is very, very hot. Okay, so that is where the boiler is, just down there, and that's the boiler drain off point. If you have drained the boiler out and then you close it back off again to fill it back up, you will find, absolutely definitely, you will find that when you turn the tap back on again, you'll just get air for a minute or so until the boiler's full. So I always explain on the videos the reason for that. So essentially, you've got the fresh water tank, which I showed you is just down there underneath this seat underneath. The water pump, which sits inside of it. So the cold side of this whole system, this whole van's water system, is really simple, where it literally, you just pull the tap on the cold side. So if I do that now, over to the cold, lift the tap up. So this water is coming directly from the tank straight to the tap. All right. Whereas if I turn it to the hot side and lift it up, it should be warm by now because I had it on before the video started as well. Yep, so we've got warm water there already. So that was probably only on for about 20 minutes. If we do that on the hot side, how it works is it gets drawn straight from the tank, just like the cold water does, but it goes directly through the boiler first before it goes to any of the taps. So in order to actually get the water through to there, the boiler has to be full. All right, so before you start using the boiler, you do have to make sure that it's full by doing what I've just shown you there. If the water comes through nice and clearly on the hot side, you can know for a fact that the boiler's full. All right, if it doesn't and water starts pouring out underneath, I can pretty much guarantee you've forgotten to lay the boiler drain down flat. All right, but that is what that is. It's all simple stuff. When you get the hang of checking that it's full and stuff like that, it's really easy. But it's just something I have to point out, because if you light the boiler up, basically the reason for that is if you light the boiler up or turn the boiler on the mains and the boiler is completely empty of water, it will overheat because you'll essentially be heating up nothing. All right, it's made to light up and heat up whatever's inside of it, but if there's nothing inside of it, it's just going to overheat. All right, so the next thing is the space heater. Now this is still seriously hot because I've literally only just turned it off. So this is, to be completely honest, this is as standard as these space heaters get. So you haven't got the fan over here to worry about, you haven't got the mains electric, it's just a gas heater, nice and simple, really easy to use. So all you have to do to actually light it up, turn this dial here around to kind of 2 or 3, and then, and it's a bit awkward with one hand, but you've got this piezo igniter. So the piezo igniter, bit noisy, but they all are. When you push on that, it's creating a spark down here. Okay, so all you have to do to actually light it, push on this on sort of 2 or 3, and push on the igniter a few times at the same time. So if I'm going to do that, push down on the button, and then I'll get back to, hold on a second, you run into a problem. Right, the piezo igniter has got stuck down. Right, just as the video starts, always the way, isn't it? I had it lit up perfectly just a minute ago. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. So basically it's just got stuck in its little bolt there, probably where it's got hot and I've turned it off too soon. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a minute. So the fridge is a 3-way fridge. I've got the fridge lit up on the gas at the moment, and I can tell that by 2 ways. One, I can actually see the flame through that little peephole there. And 2, I've already put my hand over the vent on the outside to prove that it's actually working because it was hot. So there's those 2 ways to make sure it's lit up on gas. So I've got it on the gas symbol there, and so I'm going to turn it off just for a minute, and then we can see the flames going off. So because I've got the mains cable plugged into the vehicle, really I should have it here on 240 volt, 230 volt. So at the moment now, because I've got the mains plugged in, the 240 volt element in the back of the fridge is heating up and in turn cooling the fridge down. Okay, so that's literally all you have to do. If you want to use it on the mains, select 230V. If you've already pre-cooled this fridge and you've started the engine up ready to drive off, go one more down to 12 volt. And if you don't have either of those 2 things, so the engine isn't running and you don't have a hookup plugged in, you go all the way down to the bottom for gas, and basically same kind of idea as the space heater. Push in on this button here and in on your piezo igniter, and if I do that, if you watch, there you go. So it won't always light up like that absolutely first go. I just knew that it would because I've literally only just turned it off and it was still hot down there. All right, so then you can just let go of that, leave it to do its thing, and it will cool down. Okay, so that's how you use the fridge. So if I just quickly explain the 12 volt thing as well, the gas and the 240 volt are the only 2 ways that this fridge will get cold, like by itself. Okay, so you have to pre-cool the fridge before you start driving off to wherever you're going to go. When you switch over to 12 volt, like I said, that only works when your engine's running, and that's because you've got something called a split relay in any decent motorhome, which basically means when you start the engine up, the alternator charges up the engine battery, just like any car or van does. It then gets split from there through to the leisure battery and to the fridge, so that all the time that you're driving, you're charging up your leisure battery and you're keeping your fridge cool on 12 volt. All right, so it's quite clever really, but that's just how that works. Your 3-burner hob up here and the grill and oven all have an ignition from this one switch. Okay, so this switch down here does your 3 burners, grill and oven. I don't feel like I need to show you how to use that because it's just like any household cooker, if I'm completely honest. Leave the door open if you're going to use the grill, but you already know that, to be fair. Down here, oops, we've got some more gas isolators. The top one there is for the fridge, the middle one is for your 3 burners at the top, and the bottom one is for the grill and oven. Same again, just turn them 90 degrees if you want to isolate the gas. Right, so I will get that bit to come back up, and I'll make sure it's not going to happen again after the video, obviously. Right. Oh, but anyway, I don't even know if I finished explaining it. I can still explain it how it works. So you basically turn this round to 2 or 3 and light it up by pressing the piezo igniter. Once you can see the flame in there, you're still holding down on the button there, twist it around to sort of 7, 8 or 9 and lift it up. When you lift it up, you'll notice that the main flame kicks in, and once that's kicked in and it stays on, you can just leave it alone and turn it off whenever you want to, just by turning it all the way back round to 0. All right. So like I said, please don't worry about that. That's very, very normal to happen. We just need to get it out and lubricate it a little bit. So the bathroom itself, again, very, very simple. You've just got the 2-way mixer tap, hot and cold, for the shower, and again, very simple, your 12 volt mixer tap for the sink. Now you will see, I'm sure you would have noticed, this little catch at the top here. Now let me tell you why that's there. So these little bits so basically these whole units here, so you know, including everything all the way down to the top of that toilet there, is all one piece. And in order to replace these things, it's a real pig's ear basically, and a lot of the time you just can't get hold of them anyway. So a lot of different customers will come up with lots of different ideas on how to actually hold these up, because these little bits here basically just start breaking off. So originally it would have just pushed over and stayed, but they just eventually start to sort of break away a little bit. So I think this is quite a little clever idea. This is actually a bit of a fridge. It just goes over a little screw there, and that is nice and solid. So hopefully that doesn't bother you too much, but that's why that's happened there. The toilet is very simple how to use, but I will just show you how it works. The flush fluid gets pumped around from this switch just here. Nice blue colour. That's the sort of mixture that you want, really. You don't want it to be too watery. And then you drain it out into the cassette by pulling this handle down. So that will now all just go straight into the cassette. And then close the flap back over whenever you're finished. And that is it. So that is the bathroom. The light switch for the bathroom is just here outside the door. Right, so is there anything else? This has been retrofitted, just so you know, at some point, but I actually quite like these little things. They're quite cheap to buy, but they are, you know, they're quite useful, to be fair. There would already have been some 12 volt power just here for this anyway, but I quite like the fact that it gives you a digital battery voltage level as well. So that's quite nice there. You should have a couple of USBs under this one here. There you go. So turn that off when you finish with it from there. Your TV, so really, there's a couple of places where you can have a TV. You can either have it sat on here with these points here, or over here on this bracket that's already been fitted. Your best bet's probably just have it here, to be honest, so you don't cause any more holes or anything. Loads of storage under there. So I think that's about it, really. I don't think there's much else I can specifically show you. This little switch just here is for your awning light. So if you look, when I turn that on, nice little LED awning light. So if there is anything you think I've missed out or anything you'd like going through again, just let us know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.